Karlsson Price for Monday, April 6, 2026, presentation of Bet365. Check out Bet365's 3-goal early payout. When your team goes up 3, you get paid. It's that simple. Download the app today. Must be 19 plus. Please play responsibly. I hope everybody had a wonderful Easter weekend. Matt Sekeres alongside Blake Price. 4-time Juno Award winner Mike Rogerson hitting switches and conducting things. We're coming to you from the Pacific Toyota Dealer Studio. Visit shoptoyota.ca or visit your local Pacific Toyota dealer today. How was your weekend? I know you were in Toronto calling that crazy MLS match with TFC.
Yeah, that was on a frigid day. It was -1.
It did not look warm. It did not look warm.
And I got an up-close look at those World Cup stands. When you're inside the bowl,
I heard it looks better from the inside out than the outside looking in looks awful.
From the outside, it looks like if you took away one leg, the whole thing would fall down.
From the outside looking in, it looked like, there's a really big graduating class. We need extra seats to be able to do the ceremony.
From the inside, it looks pretty cool. Yeah, because they've got the one stand has even got a row of suites attached to it, so that's pretty cool. Anyway, that, and then I came home and I made an Easter dinner yesterday. Did a turkey.
You made Easter dinner.
I did a lot of the heavy lifting, Nailed my turkey. How about you? What'd you do?
Played a lot of golf.
Did you?
Played golf yesterday at the Redwoods.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, was in amazing shape. Had an absolute blast. Went and saw our buddy Vanni Sortini on Friday out at Willoughby Community Park before the Halifax Wanderers had a training session in advance of their game. Had some Easter dinner at the parents' place and watched a whole lot of sports because that's what I do. And I particularly love what people will argue this is one of the best times of year for sports, Masters coming up, NHL, NBA playoffs starting, all of that. It struck me on Saturday. And look, the Giants are done. The Lions haven't started yet. But on Saturday, we had 7 of our local teams in action. You had the Vancouver Canadians who have started up. They were down across the line in Tri-City, their opening series of the season. You had the Goldeneyes in Minnesota, and that game was on TV, CBC. You had VFC with their season opener out at Willoughby Community Park. You had the Vancouver Warriors in Buffalo in the NLL. That was a big matchup. You had the Abbey and Vancouver Canucks at home. It was the home finale for Abbey. And you had Vancouver Whitecaps FC at home at BC. So we had 7 local teams going on Saturday. And you'll be able to catch all of these teams except for the Abbey Canucks going forward. Although not many more chances to see the Vancouver Canucks at Rogers Arena.
Probably best, given their home record.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And I know how you're not big on birthdays or anniversaries, so we're going to keep it simple
I'm willing to concede this one.
All right.
I'm willing to concede.
It is the 5-year anniversary of S&P Karlsson Price on our own here in the digital space after the shuttering of the former TSN 1040 radio frequency. Our first show was April 6, 2021. We did it right here from the Wall Center down the hallway here in a conference room, which we had fitted for broadcast. We have since built the Nation Network studio here that we come to you from each and every day. Cannot thank our loyal audience members. Those of you who were with us in the radio days and came over, our new audience, and it grows each and every day. We're sometimes astounded at the growth on the YouTube side of things, and particularly with young people. Carmen says to me, you used to get recognized by old guys, and now like 18 to 21-year-olds know who you are. It's pretty cool, actually.
Keep spreading the word, folks.
Yeah, and thank you to all our sponsors over the last 5 years who have gotten behind us and allowed us to do this.
And all of our regulars and fill-in hosts that are part of the
Mike, you too.
The Little Machine and the Juno Award winner.
Yes.
Aw.
Yeah.
Remembered my name.
See, there are some shows where that would be a thing, Mike.
Yes.
We know you producers love the anonymity of your board and your room.
Captains don't always remember who they play with.
That's true. Very timely.
That's a very good segue, sir. He's pretty sharp. Brings us to our daily poll question. After hearing what he had to say about the Canucks organization, was Quinn Hughes a regrettable choice at captain? You can vote yes, you can vote no. Do so at the Karlsson Price X and YouTube channels. Yes, the first meeting with former Vancouver Canucks captain Quinn Hughes took place Thursday heading into the long weekend in Minnesota, of course. Hughes now a member of the Wild, the only game between the two sides since December's big trade. And he did what I thought was a revealing interview with Thomas Drance of The Athletic, which really shed more light onto not only the situation that Quinn Hughes was presiding over here with the Canucks over the last couple of years, but also into Quinn Hughes himself. And I got to say, I thought he was a better people person. He had me a little bit fooled. I thought he was rounding into his captaincy kind of like Henrik Sedin, who, for those of you who remember, wasn't a big, outgoing, gregarious personality when he got the C, but really got that letter and changed, was more outspoken, was more of a leader, was comfortable being the team conscience. I saw that sort of arc for Quinn Hughes as captain. And with everything that I've seen and heard, and particularly after reading that story, I thought he would have been a better people person. What shone through to me was this was a relatively immature choice as captain who wasn't ready for everything. And look, needless to say, was dealt a bad hand with Elias and JT and everything that took place. But I think I'm guilty of having given him too much credit after he got the C. So, yeah, I'm voting yes, it was a regrettable choice.
Yeah, I think there was every reason to get duped a little bit into that. In the end, I think Huggy Bear is an ironic nickname. I don't think he's that Huggy a Bear at all. And
yeah, the way he's dealt with success since the U.S. gold medal has been off-putting to a lot of Canucks fans.
But I don't think he's that touchy-feely a guy. And I think that, honestly, that nickname probably had some root in that he's everything at an arm's length. And he ultimately admitted to not having much control over the locker room issues that divided the team. And that also, I think, it was a bit of a self-own. I don't know that it was intended to be, but he kind of seemed to run up the white flag. It sounds like as to what was happening in this room, and was unable to overcome that challenge.
Well, the entitlement has very much shone through since the Olympic gold medal, and I think when the going got tough, he got going. That much is clear. Quinn Hughes, I think, is far more appropriate after hearing what he had to say late last week.
And methinks he doth protest too much, too, in large part. And again, for a guy, all these players, they say, I don't listen to you guys. I don't read you guys.
Well, it's clear he did.
Well, then why were you saying, I don't, a lot of people think that I wasn't playing hard till the very end. Well, how did you know that, Quinn? The professing of ignorance to all these issues leads to a bit of a breakdown between fans, media, and the players when people are just not telling the truth. There's a trust lost.
Well, we heard this Thursday. This was to the general scrum, but the odd comment about not knowing guys on the Canucks, and I don't know for the life of me where that came from. Big Head Hockey did the math here.
Oh, he explained.
It was 16 guys who not only would have played with Quinn, but have been captained by them. like, you're the captain, right? Like, you're supposed to be in touch with all corners of the dressing room. And you're telling me you're going to make that comment when there are 16 of the 20 guys on the other side that you played with?
I think what he had in his brain was, it's not like I was longtime teammates to the entire roster. If he had said that statement, that would have been more true. And that's ultimately the next sentence that came out of his mouth. He said, I played a few months with a bunch of those guys, but the guys that I played the bulk of my years with in Vancouver, most of those guys are gone. That was the next two sentences out of his mouth. So what he was saying was, yeah, did I play 3 months with them this season? A lot of these guys? Yes. But that's not who my longtime teammates were on this team.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, needless to say, that comment in particular did not go over well with Canucks fans. Here's one tweet. Conti, we know Conti, Chris Conti. Quinn Hughes embarrassed himself today. His comments made it clear his captaincy was about keeping him, not leading the team. A captain owns the moment. He deflected it. That attitude doesn't build culture. The team is better off without. Well, it's hard to argue they're better off without Quinn Hughes. He remains one of the best hockey players and defensemen the world over. But I do agree with the making him captain was more about keeping him than it was about culture. I think it's fair to say that they were a little premature in putting that C on Hughes's jersey. But he revealed a fair bit in that Athletic interview, including, I think we knew this, but he shed more light. He was Team JT over Team Elias. You look at some of the quotes there. Quote, to lose that guy, meaning Mueller, was the fracture of everything, and yet you could see it coming for years. He points out that JT was a 100-point player, and, quote, it wasn't accomplished by cheating all the time.
He means blowing the zone early and waiting for the breakout passes at the center ice.
But I also wondered whether that was also a little shot across the bow of Elias Pettersson and his preparation, practice habits, and all the things that Jim Rutherford, Patrick Alvin, and mostly Rick Tocchet were banging the drum on for years.
Yeah, I mean, it's comments. I think he knows. Again, it's very clear he knows what the criticisms of this core were, and so he was trying to shed some light on it. But in the end, I think it actually ends up backfiring on him.
Yeah. Well, let me just ask you this, and we'll ask this of Cam Robinson later, Jeff. Is Elias Pettersson the root of all their problems?
I mean, if I'm taking that word for word, no, because all is doing too much work there.
Most of their problems.
I'll comfortably say this. I think this team will find it a lot harder to turn the page and move on with him in the room.
Yes, I agree. Many have said that.
And that's not saying that he can't be a 75, 80-point player again. I think that is still, I can have those two independent thoughts, I think. I just think it'll be a lot tougher for it to happen as a Canuck. Mm-hmm. And I think just having that personality in this room right now is probably not ideal. There's just too much water under the bridge.
You mentioned it. It's also clear he saw the comments about his effort level earlier this season. We have the visual there. Quinn, quote, I'd see stuff like he doesn't care anymore, but go watch my last game against Buffalo and you tell me that I didn't care. Well, it was one game, Quinn, and there were a lot of games before that where you weren't yourself. It's that simple.
Yeah.
And so people are putting 1 + 1 together and saying he was checked out on the Vancouver Canucks. That is something you're going to have to own and live with for the rest of your days in the NHL. I suspect that there will come a day long into the future, much like we saw with Pavel Bure, where the market, the fan base, the player all kiss and make up. Because I do suspect there will be a ceremony for Quinn Hughes one day. I don't think he is getting his number retired, but I can see him in the Ring of Honor one day. I mean, he leads Canucks defensemen in just about everything, or even if it doesn't get to that, just some point where he's retired and comes back to Vancouver for some sort of ceremony. Maybe it's for an ex-teammate. We shall see. But that day is a long ways off. And until then, I think there will be a lot of people here in Vancouver who will have their opinion.
It's also very interesting that he points to the Buffalo game. He got a point in that Buffalo game. He played a half an hour, played 30 minutes. That ended a 6-game pointless streak for Quinn Hughes.
Yeah. He also said that he felt like a one-man band at times in Vancouver this year, and he's not wrong on this point. This point I can absolutely concede to him when he talks about how he had to be a one-man breakout and a one-man break-in. They were so destitute at center ice that, you did not have a puck carrier distributor in the middle of the sheet like you normally would. So Hughes said, quote, "It's easier for me here. The way I'd explain it is that 30 minutes in Vancouver earlier this year is a lot harder than 30 minutes here right now in Minnesota."
I believe that. Yeah.
Yep. Like in Vancouver, I felt to create something, I had to break it out. I had to do the zone entry. Reflecting on it, I was probably just overtaxed and overworking. I thought that was pretty good introspection and honesty.
Well, and ultimately, I think that's still overthinking it from his standpoint. Do you need to do a little bit more work when you're on a less talented team and you're one of the star players? Yeah, you do. But when you try to do everything, then you become counterproductive. Yeah. And I think that's what we ended up seeing was he was trying to do everything. And there is a bar where you get past that and you start to be counterproductive now.
Yep.
So,
but I would say two things, Blake. Number one, I don't blame him.
No,
number two, I'd rather he try and do everything than no show, as we saw a few times early in the season.
Mm-hmm. Well, and ultimately late, too. I think even when he was playing okay for this team this year, I still think he was overworking and overthinking and trying to do too much and not trusting his teammates. I think there was a lot of young players on here that he just didn't trust to give the puck to.
And frankly, I don't blame him there either. Like, the one thing about playing with Hockey Genius is you sort of have to have like-minded collaborators, right? Like, the key is for the Hockey Genius – they have to dumb it down a little bit and realize the limitations of their line mates, defense partners. But there are some guys who are just not going to get to that level, right? Who don't understand, I should move myself here because he's good enough. He's going to beat that check, walk around, and here's a passing angle where if I just set up here, stick on the ice. You're going to have guys who just aren't able to process and compute the game at that level. With how fast it moves. So that part I understood. He talked about January 2024 and how he felt like the winning was just going to keep on keeping on, and yet still knowing it was a tinderbox with JT and with Elias. And Blake, that's a very important date stamp because, of course, it wasn't long thereafter where the Canucks made the decision they were going to re-sign Elias. Quinn knew. Pretty clear the coach knew, too. And for whatever reason, management decided, no, we're going to cast our lot with both of these guys under long-term contract, despite the fact they hate each other and can't get along and collaborate as teammates and coworkers.
And you know what? Maybe they were duped as to the severity of it at that point. Maybe they thought, these are two adults. We can make it work. It's fixable. Or maybe they were reckless and they should have known better. I mean, only they know the answer.
I would really love to know if at that early date, whether they even surveyed Quinn to find out, hey, what do you think? Like, I had argued for some time, Quinn Hughes was so important to this franchise that much like the star quarterback in football, the star player in the NBA, you almost had to bring him in a little bit on the managerial decisions. And I know he said he didn't want to be a party to that during the coaching search, but it's clear they hired a coach with an eye towards Quinn Hughes and keeping Quinn Hughes. And I mean, that, like everything else Rutherford and Alvin did last summer, backfired. But I know hockey is uncomfortable with this, but, given how important these star players are, I think going forward, you're going to see more and more of that in terms of consultation with that star player about the moves that coaches and managers need to make.
But speaking of coaches, Matt, I don't even mean this to sound blamey necessarily, but I would bet that Rick Tocchet if he was asked, can you fix the situation between Petey and JT Miller, I would bet that Rick Tocchet had said yes. I would bet that he would think that he was skilled enough to
tend to,
and I don't even know that, I'm trying to put myself in Rick Tocchet's position. I probably would think that I could do it too. These are two adults. Yes, I can get these two adults to speak to each other and iron this out. I'll make it work. Don't worry. I mean, maybe that happened.
It's a father of four speaking. He has presided over some dispute resolution in the house.
Yeah. But not every dispute is resolvable.
I might have said, hell no. Let them go their separate ways. It ain't ever going to work with these two.
But there's the difference between actual family and, dressing room family. Is actual family, you generally go to the end of the earth to try to make it work. Dressing room family, eventually there's a limit to it, to how far you can get pushed.
I'm just glad you're dressing room family, Blake. Karma and I so adore you. Mike as well.
And we've made it work.
Yeah, we've made it work.
Yeah.
And then lastly, let's just, come on. I'm sorry, you don't know your 16 ex-teammates who are on the other side, but you're name-dropping Elias Lindholm and Nikita Zadorov?
Well, that's
didn't love that juxtaposition where Quinn talks about letting Zadorov and Lindholm go after their fine run in the 2024 Stanley Cup playoffs. But what I will say is I'm glad he brought it up because, look, Lindholm got far too much money from Boston.
They could not have fit him in.
Zadorov was a different matter, though. Zadorov, for me, was a guy that just brought a energy that I wanted around here, and they weren't willing to pay the piper on Big Nikita, and he moved on to Boston, and that coupled with Ian Cole's departure, I really do think it hurt culture.
Now, I will say this, Nikita Zadorov was, I had so much fun watching him as a Vancouver Canadian.
I mean, he was amazing.
He was perfect for that moment, absolutely. But
he was great to listen to, too. I mean, I loved the personality in the interviews. He just put smiles on faces.
But he is getting older, and he is not that great a defenseman.
No, I mean, the contract is probably not going to age well there.
He's had back-to-back now 20-point seasons. 20 points from that guy.
Yep.
That's hard to imagine.
When you saw some of the rushes and the way he was impacting the game offensively in the playoffs, Blake.
He had more goals in 54 Canucks games than he's had.
Yep. They may well have gotten out of the player at the right time.
Yes.
But in terms of getting out of the person, and particularly when you hear that from Quinn.
But how much do you pay for that?
Yeah,
right?
I know.
You got to make a calculated decision there.
Anyways, yes or no was naming Quinn Hughes captain a regrettable choice given what you've heard from the ex-captain on the Canucks organization? You were a yes or you were a no?
Yeah, it's a regrettable decision now. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, with hindsight.
With the benefit of hindsight. Oh, we completely understand.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to play the game, who was the guy to name captain at the time? Clearly, it wasn't Elias. I mean, I was banging the Elias drum when it was, oh boy, you want to do everything in your power to keep Elias. And it turns out they were able to keep Elias without putting the C on him. He didn't want that, need that, what have you. Would Besser have been the right choice?
I don't know that I would have felt like that was obvious either.
Would Myers have been the right choice?
It's just I forget where we were in the swing of the Myers' performance and certainty with the team really ebbed and flowed over the last 4 or 5 years, right? So I would have to be taken back to that exact moment and remind myself where Myers' ebb and flow was.
September 2023, if that helps you. September 11th, as it turns out. So it was 3.5 years ago.
September of 2023, he's coming off a 17-point season, is Myers.
Yep.
And he's about to start the new contract. He just got signed, did he?
No, he was still playing out.
Going into the last year?
Yeah, he was still on the big one.
You might have been wondering about whether he's coming back. Now, he almost doubles his points from year to year. He goes to from that September, he starts a 29-point season and a great renaissance for him. So
No, I know.
I don't think
not have been a great choice.
There may not have been a great choice. A bunch of great-looking A guys, but a C guy?
Yeah.
Hughes might have looked like the most obvious.
You had your C guy. His name is Bo Horvat.
Yep. And a lot of people pointed to that in the poll question responses.
Oh, and
that's the original sin.
When I think back to the criticism that Bo got as captain, they're not doing this, they're not doing that. How effective of a leader can he be because of this, and this is missing, and that. I always felt with Bo Horvat, the phrase, you can lead a horse to water, applies. They're not going to bow their heads and drink. That's on the horse. But the leader of the horse pack can bring you to the stream. And Bo brought a lot of people to the stream. Let's get to our top story. It's brought to you by Yellow Dog Brewing, Neighborhood Brewing, Foolish Winery. Standing pat? ? Really? Could the Canucks actually run back this management group, or at least the architects of this disaster? That's the word from TSN and S&P insider Darren Dreger on Insider Trading of TSN late last week. He reports the Canucks could make hockey ops changes, but he doesn't expect it will include senior management. And that report in stark opposition to what Nick Kypreos reported last week, saying that Patrick Allvin is telling people that he'll be out at the end of the year. We're going to get Darren on the show next week.
And it's not even
maybe later this week. We'll see.
Both of these things, again, can be true at once here because Dreger's just reporting what he thinks is the plan of the actual organization. And those other reports were what Allvin was thinking in his gut. And Allvin just might have a far more pessimistic view of his future than is actual reality. So I think I don't know that there's a refuting here happening. Again, Allvin was just talking about his feeling of the vibes apparently in the report from Kypreos. So he can have a not so rosy outlook, but then still retain his job. I think that would be a very interesting decision by this team. If I believe that Dreger got the information that he got. I don't believe they can do it.
No,
I don't believe so.
They can pull it off either. I think you have a very angry market. In some quarters, it's quite happy that the rebuild is finally here because they've been calling for it for the better part of 12 years. But I think there's also some residual anger in terms of what you allowed to transpire here. I mean, the Vancouver Canucks became a laughingstock across not just the NHL, but the pro sports world. I mean, we saw it even last week with the Trevor Beggs business. But, the way they treated Boudreau, not being able to fix the Mueller-Pettersson problem, that being such a public spectacle. I mean, these are not regular occurrences with functional franchises.
Those three, Boudreau, the Mueller-Pettersson, and well, maybe even four if you want to call a Quinn Hughes trade like another lightning post
for sure.
Another lightning rod.
No question.
Like,
and then that trade too. I mean, a lot of big missteps here. Now, two things on this file, and we're going to get to a super chat here, folks, on YouTube. That super chat button is always available to you. Hit it, make your donation. Half proceeds to the BC Mental Health Foundation. We will make sure to get it on the program. One thing you have to remember about the Aquilinis and their stewardship of the Vancouver Canucks franchise. When they have had the keys unencumbered, not as the minority partner to John McCaw, they have made 3 managerial changes, and they have had the next guy set up before moving on the current guy.
Yeah.
They knew they were hiring Mike Gillis when they fired Dave Nonis. They knew they were hiring Trevor Linden when they fired Mike Gillis. They knew they were hiring Jim Rutherford when they fired Jim Benning.
They don't like to wander in the darkness.
No. I know Francesco called it a global search for their chief hockey-making decision maker, but 48 hours arrived on Jim Rutherford. I mean, do the math. He's not fooling anybody. So I suspect if we're making a move at the Rutherford level, I suspect there will be some rumor scuttlebutt reporting about the Canucks contacting replacements, unless they're hiring from within. I know some people are terrified. Are they going to elevate Dale Talon, who's had a hand in, of course, Florida and Chicago Stanley Cups? Now, on the Allvin side of things, I'm not necessarily sure if you're making that move, you're going to hear a lot of talk about other candidates, because for me, the Allvin move probably just means elevating Ryan Johnson. Maybe Jim Rutherford reaches into his past with another younger executive that he likes, that he is going to tap as the next successor. But boy, I take some chutzpah. I'm not necessarily sure he would have the authority to do that after this has all fallen flat. I suspect it would be Ryan Johnson if you're just elevating someone into the Allvin share.
Certainly Francesco Aquilini is not watching the show taking advice from us, but if I'm the owners and that's what Jim Rutherford wants to do, Matt, I need absolute assurance from Jim Rutherford that he's around for the next 3 seasons at least. If Jim is thinking this is his last year, well, hold the phones here. Then you both can go right now, and I'm going to bring in somebody with experience.
Like, then we get back to the existential question. Should he be conducting the rebuild? Like, he's probably not seeing it through at 77 years old, and that gets us back to a total house cleaning. But again, if it's going to be a total house cleaning, they typically have had the next guy ready before moving on this guy. And look, there's a lot of time here. I mean, you don't have to make this move right at the end of the regular season.
No, but I was just going to ask you, I was going to follow up, is going to be, okay, if they do a full house cleaning, and I think that, again, Rutherford's future, I think, is a part of the equation here if you're the ownership.
Sure.
It should be,
sure.
At least.
It should be.
I mean, I think you want to give this team every bit the possibility to, and I mean the team and management, settle into their spots.
Yes.
Go into the draft with clear head.
You think that, but we've seen a couple of crazy moves on NHL benches in the last week. But yeah, I mean, I would like to think you have to make this decision and get everybody in place by the middle of May, right? Give them a month to 6 weeks to ramp up for the draft.
Imagine having no management group for the lottery. Like, not that they're needed for the lottery, it's just a result. But it's kind of funny to think, okay, they've got the result, and there's nobody that we know now that will be making the decision.
Representing the Vancouver Canucks on the dais, here's Finn.
Yes. A lot of people have been calling for that for years.
Yeah. Okay, the super chat here from Pistol Balboa. Do you believe any of the smoke about Gillis and Gilman coming back to Vancouver? Well, the first thing I'd say is that it would appear that Mr. Gillis may have a leverage point or two, so I think it's got more expensive.
I don't think there's actual smoke. Pistol, there's people like us just sort of saying, hey, he's here. He's still local. Yeah. He would love to not move his entire
You'd be righting
life.
Wrong.
But I don't think there's actual smoke on this.
So
I think there is actual smoke about Toronto. There's no actual smoke about Vancouver.
Correct. Here's what I'd say, Pistol. First of all, separate them. I would be absolutely floored, gobsmacked, would fall to my knees if Mike Gillis agreed to work for Francesco Aquilini.
Yeah, I would be.
If it's another Aquilini running the show, like, I know Mike held Luigi in high regard, thought he was a very smart, self-made businessman. If it's Roberto Aquilini, the middle brother, who has shown zero interest in the public profile or running the hockey team, that I could see a pathway. I would have a little trouble seeing Mike report to a 30-something-year-old in Dax Aquilini, Roberto's son, who has done such great work with the Warriors. But I do believe he is the next one in terms of running Canucks Sports Entertainment within the Aquilini family. I've heard nothing but great things about Dax Aquilini over the years. Mike's 67. Would he report to somebody less than half his age? I don't know. But I think Francesco is a barrier to a Gillis redux. It's different with Gilman. It's different with Gilman because, first of all, a general manager's chair would be a promotion. We had Lawrence on a week or so after he joined the Columbus Blue Jackets. He's loving life there. Until recently here, they were on quite a heater with, needless to say, a guy he's quite close with, and Rick Bowness. They worked together here with the Canucks for all those years. I mean, it's virtually impossible to dislike Rick Bowness and Lawrence Gilman. They are that quality of people. Their cheeriness resonates. But it would be career progression with Lawrence. I know he's always aspired to a GM chair. And I don't think he has the leverage and ability to be as choosy as Gillis does, or the financial.
And despite the way that it finished,
remember, Mike made a lot of money in the agent game before even stepping into an NHL executive chair.
And despite the way that it finished with Lawrence, I think he'd be willing to let bygones be bygones, and I think he does still have a spot in his heart for the crest. So
Lawrence has deep affection for the city of Vancouver.
Yeah.
And for the Canucks crest.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people in the building, especially those who were there when he was last here. Lawrence got along, and Lawrence interacted with a broad network of people inside of Rogers Arena and outside in the Vancouver community. That I can absolutely guarantee you.
And he's
in fact, Mike used to kid Lawrence that sometimes Lawrence was more recognized than he was, or people felt more comfortable walking up to Lawrence and saying, "Hey, Gilman, capologist, this, that, the other thing," and striking up conversations. That was the one thing that Mike used to tease Lawrence about a little bit, is like, you're more popular here on the streets than me. Everybody wants to come up and talk to you.
Well, and people, might think this is trivial, but being a good communicator is a big part of this job, and you're the face of the franchise a lot of times. Like Alvin probably has still done. I was going to say more,
and it's a PR win for the Canucks because Lawrence is so loved here, right?
Yeah,
and he represents the best era of Vancouver Canucks hockey.
And when you communicate well, though, you earn yourself some space and grace with fans and media who believe that there's an adult in the room making the right decision on behalf of the team.
Right.
So it's worth something.
Right. So to answer your question, Pistol, I'm not believing it with Mike Gillis unless there's a change of chairman, and I don't see that coming. I do think there is something to the Lawrence Gilman file, yes. I don't know anything there, but I can understand how a reunion with Lawrence Gilman checks a lot of boxes for the Canucks organization and Canucks Sports Entertainment.
I'm hoping for it, but I do not think it will happen on either front.
Right. So, team continues to lose games. 2 more over the course of the weekend. 7-4 versus Utah Saturday, dropping their home record to 8-26-5. That defeat ensures the Canucks cannot win back-to-back games on home ice this season. They haven't done that since March 7th. Blake, they did not win back-to-back games on home ice all year. Only 2 more home games remaining. Of their 6, tomorrow versus John Tortorella, another ex-Canuck, and the Vegas Golden Knights a week from tomorrow versus the LA Kings on Player Award and Fan Appreciation Night. This might be the Fan Appreciation. You want to give me the jersey off your back? No, thanks. You're not going to be in the NHL this year. You just keep that jersey.
So there's a good chance the Canucks finish now this season with an 8-win home record.
Yeah. They would need to win both to get to double digits. Rob Williams has the tweet here. Worst home teams in NHL history, minimum 30 games. There, of course, been some abbreviated seasons, COVID lockout. Canucks are one of just 2 non-expansion teams on the list of worst home records in NHL history. The only other non-expansion team from this list, those of you on visual platforms are seeing, is the Pittsburgh Penguins 83-84. That was the pre-Mario Lemieux era, when the Penguins were actively tanking from Christmas on and in danger of losing the franchise. All those other teams, the Washington-era teams, the Senators-era teams, the Sharks, those are all at or near expansion. And remember, your older brother's expansion was not your VGK Seattle Kraken expansion. It was a death sentence for several years. You were going to lose. Everybody in the league agreed you were going to lose. In fact, the terms of you coming into the league were with the understanding, the broad understanding, that you were going to lose and pay the piper over several seasons.
The next worst team at home this season in terms of total wins, the Los Angeles Kings, who had 12, which is still 50% more wins than the Vancouver Canucks currently have.
And the Kings don't ever win regulation games, it should be said as well.
But the Kings are a near playoff team right now on the strength of being so damn good on the road. It's so bizarre.
Are they still just the 19 regulation wins, Blake? Did they win one in regulation this weekend?
They're 19 regulation wins, yeah.
That is astonishing. 76 games, 19 regular season wins. They have 19 loser points that's floating their boat.
And again, given what the OT and shootout rules are, that means, and this is why regulation wins is an interesting stat, because that's playing the sport that is played in the playoffs.
That's right.
So they will have won just a quarter of their games.
So rooting for them.
A quarter of their games.
I honestly, I don't know if you're with me, because I'm watching a lot of out-of-market games now. I am so rooting against Nashville and Los Angeles, and I am so rooting for Macklin Celebrini and the Sharks to make the playoffs. I don't think the Sharks are any kind of threat to Colorado, but holy jumping, I would love to see that series with Nathan McKinnon and Macklin Celebrini going head-to-head.
Oh, that'd be so much fun.
Speaking of change, we thought the Torts hire 1 week ago, firing Stanley Cup winning coach Bruce Cassidy, would be the last big bombshell of the NHL season. Matthew Darche, hold my beer. The Islanders' new general manager fires Patrick Roy on Easter Sunday. Might be some imagery there if you're a Catholic in the province of Quebec. Saint Patrick. Fires Patrick Roy on Easter Sunday and hands Pete DeBoer a 4-year deal beyond this season. With just 4 games remaining in their season, Islanders 1 point out of a playoff spot. They have been losing ground to the pack. They're hoping for the new coach bump. Torts is 3-0 as Vegas head coach. In fact, Knights 1 point back of Anaheim and Edmonton in what is a really fun derby for first place in the Pillow Fight Pacific.
You have to know the room very well to know if a firing and a head coach change at this time of year is worth the disruption. You have to. So
there's some context here from Arthur Staple. Did you want to get into that?
Go ahead.
So Darche apparently felt like there was going to be at least 5 to 6 teams looking for coaches once the season ended. And interestingly, he lists Toronto, LA, Nashville, Columbus, Winnipeg, Vegas. He does not put the Canucks on that list, though I think he could. So they wanted to get a jump. They knew that DeBoer would be in demand. Ownership's willing to eat the money on Patrick Roy. And then the other thing about Pete DeBoer, he's a turnaround artist. Jersey, his first year, went to the final. San Jose, first year, went to the final. Vegas, first year, went to the Western Conference final. Ditto with Dallas in his first year. So his first year on the job has been very good results in the Stanley Cup playoffs for Pete DeBoer.
He's a bit of a hard ass. So he's there's a Ken Hitchcock sort of element here of like comes in, gets structure, teaches you how to win, but by 2.5 years in, you're done hearing the voice. So that's been this cycle for Pete DeBoer, but the Islanders don't care. Give us 2.5 of your best years, and we'll see if we can get to a Stanley Cup final.
Emily Kaplan of ESPN further reports that Darche felt like Sorokin, the goaltender, was being too exposed. They needed better defensive structure.
And he'll give him that.
Yep. And look, the Islanders and Vegas Golden Knights, ruthless here with coaches. I know Donnie and Dolly are talking about this. I don't really see them as akin situations because the Canucks are on the front end of a rebuild. But I do get if these teams are firing their coaches, do you have any leg to stand on to bring Adam Foote back?
Well, it's very different. This is apples and eggs to me because these are teams trying to win right now. Give us your best.
That's right.
Give us your best brains. We need to win games yesterday, today, and Blake, 2 weeks from now.
The division here is if the Canucks announce that Adam Foote is coming back, or if they just don't say shit and Adam Foote turns up on the first day of training camp because they're so afraid of their public they don't even want to say that. And he's under contract, so they're not obliged to. Mm-hmm. Will Canucks fans look at it and go, are you kidding me? The Golden Knights and Islanders are firing their coaches on playoff positions because they seek better, because they see the train wreck that's coming and they're getting ahead of it. They're proactive. And you're keeping this guy despite colossal failure in his rookie year on the job?
Yeah.
That part I understand.
Well, if there was more structure defensively from this team, and it felt like there was a guy that just didn't have a skilled enough team this year, right. but everything else was in place, then I think you bring him back.
I'm with you.
But I think there's so much doubt about what he's teaching these young players, at least from our seats, that I don't know that they should be that comfortable just saying, yeah, one more year of exposure to this guy is fine, whether we win or lose. I'd be a little bit more worried about that.
I hear you.
Have you seen the forecast for this week, by the way?
It's beautiful.
It's Sunshine City.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a perfect name for the passion fruit wheat ale from Neighborhood Brewing. Sunshine City. Gold medal winning brew, silky smooth base with tart exotic characteristics of passion fruit. Perfect accompaniment to sunshine, beaches, and good times. You need some of this in your back pocket through the spring and summer. It's the Sunshine City passion fruit wheat ale.
Thanks for being my sunshine for the last 5 years, partner.
Oh, God. Put it in the Hallmark card.
The loss to Utah preceded by an Evander Kane ceremony. 1,000 games in the National Hockey League for the Vancouver native. Ceremony featured his family, his absolutely adorable children. Some gifts presented by the organization and his teammates. Patrick Alvin represented Canucks management. Now, the owner and the president aren't showing their faces these days and using the GM as a shield, which for some is another signal that the GM is going to wear this and be the scapegoat at the end of the day. Awful that that's how the Canucks operate, but it's been like this for years. As JPAD notes, Seattle Kraken had a ceremony last week for Adam Larsson's 1,000 games. The owner, the president, the GM were all on the ice, Blake.
Yeah, and Adam Larsson's not exactly a 10-year Golden Knight either.
No, he's been there longer than Kane has been in Vancouver. The equipment manager, Max Stewart, known Kane since their days together with the Vancouver Giants. That was a nice touch, presenting the silver stick. The teammates got him a Rolex. You know how Evander feels about his timepieces. As for the game, Linus Karlsson scores twice in his 100th NHL game. Jake DeBrusk continues going on the power play. Marco Rossi. DeBrusk has scored in 3 straight. He has a goal in 4 of 5 and 5 of 7, all of them with the man advantage. He's up to 19 goals on the season. 16 with the man advantage. We'll talk more DeBrusk with J-Pat coming up here, but first, let's hear from Coach Foote on Linus Karlsson's progression this season, because that's been a good news story. Sorry, Mike.
That's good to see. I mean, he's taking advantage of the situation. You know, we're in that rebuild. He's getting a lot of ice, and he's earned it. He had a really good playoff last year in Abbey, and I think he learned a lot. And he's been working hard at his game, and he continues to work. And he's consistent and predictable in the structure. So he's finding results, and I think he's gained a lot of confidence in the last 6 weeks, and you can see it. He's being real consistent.
Yeah.
37 goals in 56 games last year in playoffs and the regular season. 37 in 56. That is an incredible AHL pace.
Yep.
And we wondered what will translate. And the translation has been about what I thought, and I think there's room for a little bit more here. I think this guy can be a 20-goal scorer in the NHL. But this was gone about as good as they could have hoped.
Yep.
In the transition to making him
especially given how few goals they score, how poor the center play has been. I mean, there have been a lot of things that could have easily derailed Linus Karlsson's progression, like they derailed other wingers.
Yeah.
And he has pushed through.
He's strong, which is huge because he can do things on his own, establish some space. He can establish space, stay on his feet, and still make a play at the side of the goal.
Staying on his feet, huh?
Staying on your feet. And so he's able to bag goals like that, and he's got decent tipping abilities too. So, can he be a 21-goal scorer next year? Yeah, I think there's a path to that.
Canucks lose in Minnesota in the Hughes revenge game Thursday. I mentioned that only because early E&O on me. I intended to spend some time on this story Thursday, and then as we were going through the show, I just completely skipped over it accidentally. My bad, Ty Mueller. Because we wanted to shout out your season debut. He played 9 minutes, 55 seconds, skating with Atu Ratu and Curtis Douglas mostly. He won just the one of 4 faceoffs, and he was back playing against Utah. Also just under 10 minutes, 9 minutes, 21 seconds. It's very low event hockey so far with Ty Mueller. But he was named Abbotsford's team MVP in absentia as the Baby Canucks played their final home game on the weekend. And as Dave Hall mentioned to us last Tuesday, I want to say, when we had him on the show, fine prospects writer for Canucks Army, hey, reward your organizational soldier. And really, it's soldier singular here. We'll see about Kudryavtsev, but Mueller has done so well in Abbotsford for a couple of seasons now, much like last year when he got a couple of games, cup of coffee in the NHL. This was also appropriate, so well done.
We should get to some of the just a little odds and ends from practice today, courtesy of Jeff Paterson here.
Yeah, no Roenick, no Kane.
And no Lankinen. Kane and Lankinen are injured. They are day-to-day, says Adam Foote. He's not ready to shut them down for the season. I sort of feel like Kane's probably done for the year, but they're not willing to.
Yeah, we'll see.
They're not willing to go to that length just yet. And same thing for Kevin Lankinen and Philip Peedle. 30-minute on-ice workout after the practice, and Adam Foote telling the media that he expects Hedl to fully practice once or twice before the end of the season, but it did not sound to J-Pat like they were going to try to get him into a game, which is nice. But they just wanted him they want him to be launched into the offseason, knowing that he can go through a full regular team practice at the very least.
Makes sense.
Which makes sense, and it's safe, and it's controlled to some degree. I mean, he got injured. He got injured at practice last time out, but you know what I mean. He's an interesting wild card for next year. Like, what do they do with Philip Peedle?
Well, I mean,
I don't mean positively. I mean just like with the contract,
with
the player.
I mean, the easy answer is the LTIR. I mean, you say, son, you're not playing for us again. And then if someone wants to.
I guess.
Yeah. And lastly, I want to get to this. Tabor, Alberta was the winner of the 2026 Kraft Hockeyville. The 2 finalists were Tabor and Tumbler Ridge, British Columbia. And there's a tie that binds there for anyone who knows. In Tabor's case, it's going back 26 years now.
Is it really?
But it came down to 2 communities devastated by school shootings, and many were wondering why that has to be. Kraft didn't see the bigger picture here, but let's hope it's obvious enough to reach the ivory towers of Canucks Sports and Entertainment, and they step in and make this good. If there can't be 2 Hockeyvilles, then the Canucks should make the trip to Tumbler Ridge and do something for that community.
At the very minimum, write the check that makes it whole.
Exactly.
They get $100K instead of the $250, I believe, right? Like,
That's
just
right.
fill the gap.
That's right. Of course, 8 people, including 6 children, died in a February shooting in Tumbler Ridge. It was a student shot and killed at school in 1999 in Tabor, Alberta. Yeah. Francesco, Michael, come on. Make that right.
On a tee.
Do well here. I mean, Kraft screwed. I'm surprised that Bettman fronted it too. Like, how does Bettman not say, Kraft?
Don't make me walk out there.
You're making me walk out there and announce a winner, and the winner is actually not the community that 2 months ago lost 8 people, 6 children. Well,
defies public relations protocol.
Here's why. Gary is not smart with people. He is lacking EQ. It's all about business and duty, and
honestly,
that's the way this league works.
I saw this after the fact, after it had already happened, and I honestly felt sick to my stomach.
So did I.
Like it's like,
and like I'll say this: the Tumbler Ridge mayor and the community there were still celebrating, and good on them for putting the happiest face on this. But it was Sophie's choice here.
Yeah,
like it was right there on a tee. Kraft NHL,
both winners, so easy.
Yeah. Let's get to today's menu. It's brought to you by our friends at Greta. Fantastic spot to pregame, postgame. You are mere steps from the arena or the stadium. Plus, it's a great spot for your next group event, whether that's a work party, sports team party, family reunion, whatever the case may be. Greta has a fantastic private riser in the back. You're surrounded by screens. There's a bar right there. They have the Bitchin' Arcade. all throughout the bar, and a delicious menu of street food. Try the poutine. Get 2 forks. It'll feed 2. Check it all out. Book your event. GretaBar.com. Greta 50 West Cordova. Let the games begin. Cam Robinson's going to join us here from Elite Prospects. We'll get into what Quinn had to say. Also, point forward on some Canucks. Linus Karlsson, Marcus Pettersson, Ty Mueller. Also talk some prospecting with Cam as we do each and every week. J-Pat will slide in. Talk some Jake DeBrusk with him. Also talk some Quinn Hughes with him, the Evander Kane ceremony, and more later in the program. As mentioned, it was a super busy Saturday for our local teams of interest. We'll get into it. Whitecaps, Goldeneyes, Warriors, Seas. Awful weekend for the Blue Jays. Goodness gracious. Heading into the World Series rematch series that's coming up here starting tonight. And all the rest of the happenings. World of Golf, it's Masters week. So we'll get into all of that later in the program as well. It is time now for our Bet365 bets of the day. And Blake, I got a win on Saturday. I was on the over of that national semifinal game between Michigan and Arizona, the Final Four. And as you know, I've been a longtime Michigan fan.
Mm-hmm.
They're in the final tonight against Connecticut. Connecticut looking for its 3rd title in the last 4 years. But Michigan destroyed Arizona on Saturday in what was one of the most anticipated college basketball games certainly of this century. And I think it's clear that Michigan at their best is the best team in college hoops. So with a little bit of heart in the selection, I'm going to take the Wolverines minus 6.5 tonight. Michigan won the 89 title down the road here in Seattle. They have lost 4 straight national final games since, one on the Weber timeout. You may remember one as recently as 8 years ago where Villanova blew them off the court. But go blue, gimme Michigan, hail to the victors, minus 6.5 tonight against Connecticut.
Celebrini versus Bedard tonight. 2 guys in different positions, obviously in the standings, but I think they will try to bring out the best in each other in a showdown like this. There's not a lot of value on young Macklin these days. He's
they figured him out,
damn good. But I do get plus 215 on a pair of points for Connor Bedard. So let's see Connor. I don't know that the Hawks can win the hockey game, but the best player on the Hawks can certainly be Connor Bedard. So let's hope for 2 points at plus 250.
Tired of waiting till the end of the game to get paid out? Ready to move on to the next puck drop? That's why Bet365, an official partner of the NHL, has 3-goal early payout. If the team you're riding goes up 3 goals at any point in the game, they'll pay your bet out early. Hockey moves fast, and now with 3-goal early payout, there's one less thing you have to wait around for. Bet365. Download the app and see what early payout's all about. Must be 19 or older. Please play responsibly. Cam Robinson, next. Garrison Price from the historic Wall Center.
And this segment, a presentation of your Pacific Toyota dealers. I was just on the Pacific Toyota dealers website and perusing the various trim models of the 2026 plug-in hybrid edition of the Toyota Prius. The legend, redesigned, reimagined, and it is better than ever. 72 kilometers or so of electric range when you wake up every morning after remembering to plug it in. You won't forget because there's too much consequence now. The gas price is the way it is. You want that 72 kilometers every single drop of it. And, of course, if you have to dip into the gas, so efficient as well. Go take one for a test drive. You'll find out why we're in love. Red Tag Day deals are on through May. ShopToyota.ca.
As we welcome in the director of everything from Elite Prospects, our buddy Cam Robinson. He is off to the Frozen Four in Las Vegas later this week. We'll chit-chat about that with him next week. But we're going to talk some college free agents here. But first, got to start with some of these Quinn Hughes quotes from the Athletic, Cam, because I don't want to say he didn't pull any punches, because there were a couple of areas there where he didn't get into the most detail, but he got into more detail than I suspect he would. And sounds like he's a big JT Miller guy, or was a big JT Miller guy. Your thoughts on what we heard from the ex-Canucks captain?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. I thought he spoke a little more frankly than I would have expected. I was hanging out with Drance a couple days before that, and I know he was going to Minnesota, and he was hoping to get a one-on-one with Quinn. He figured he was likely, but didn't know how much he would give him, and he certainly gave him a lot of meat to work with there. I think as a player, when you have someone who is, a leader for you and is putting up the type of points that JT Miller was and the type of role that he was playing when he was at his peak powers there in Vancouver, that it's like, obviously he was a highly impactful player and someone that you want to try to win with. When you go back a couple of years when that team looked like they were on a steady rise and looked like they could have really made some noise moving forward. And then the wheels came off. And then obviously, Quinn's mentioning like, and then, he's gone the next year. And then, all these guys you mentioned that it's just hard to replace when everybody's moving out the door, and didn't really point fingers at anybody about why it didn't work. But if you were kind of reading between the lines there was, one player he didn't mention as kind of being a part of that issue. And I think that we could look at that as that, the rift between JT and Paterson there. It seems like Quinn was maybe leaning towards the JT side.
It's fine to have a storyline where that was impactful. It just sounded too grave for my liking from Quinn in that, this is a player that was very clearly diminishing as a player too, in JT Miller. And, the trade made sense for the club on more than just the emotional level. And I'm surprised that Quinn was going to acknowledge that meant as much as it did. And that he wasn't able to position himself as a leader that could overcome something like that.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And I also think this is an apt time to point out that not all players would make good managers. Not everybody is looking at the big picture, looking long term, because like you said, when you take into the contract and you take a look at the diminishing returns on the player itself at his age, it made a lot of sense, right? There was a lot of things stacked up for the reason why to trade JT. But not everybody in a dressing room is going to look at it like that. They're going to look at it like, hey, we're a team that just about pushed through in the second round of a playoff a couple years ago. We have this player who's super impactful right now. He's about to be an Olympian, blah blah blah. We need that player. We need that player to win because guys want to win right now. Not too many guys are looking at a team and being like, we need to rebuild so that in 5 years we can get, have a couple first overall picks and really push that. Not many guys are looking like that. So for him to have that kind of nearsighted, short-sighted viewpoint doesn't shock me, because I think that's going to be more common than we think just
in case there were any doubters left about the enormity of the fractures in the room. I mean, him calling it all this nonsense and several references, that needs to be put to bed, doesn't it? We've heard the managers,
he was already put to bed.
I would guess.
Gosh,
but
how dim a bulb do you have to be if that is just now resonating with you? A lot of Canucks fans are saying, Cam, that they regret the choice of Quinn as captain when they read through this. What did you make? Like, he's a captain. He had agency. What do you think?
It was, as soon as he left, and then, with USA winning gold and then going to the White House and all these things, it's like, it was going to open him up to a lot of criticism, I think. And then, now in an opportunity like this to kind of reflect on his time in Vancouver and to speak on it, not as like, hey, I was the captain, I was the leader. It was on me to make things right or to bring the group together and kind of help that fracture. Again, just opens himself to more criticism. At the same time, do I think Quinn was a bad choice to be captain? No, I don't. I think that, and at the time I said I liked the choice, right? Like, he was a quiet player. He was an elite player. He was someone who would lead by example. And he talked about that in the article as well, too, is that, 30 minutes in Vancouver, a lot harder than 30 minutes in Minnesota, or a lot harder than 30 minutes playing for Team USA, because he felt he needed to do everything. And, maybe that was too taxing on him as a player. And maybe that contributed to him being like, you know what, this isn't where I want to be long-term, especially with where the club's going. But it also, I think, is reflective of how he was as a leader. And it was, I'm going to go and do everything I can do possible on the ice to try to drag us forward. But you could tell by his personality, and you know this being around players, both of you, is that not everyone's going to be a rah guy, right? You look at, I had a chat with Scotty Walker there just the other day, and he was talking about Trevor Linden was the greatest leader he ever worked with. Rod Brindamore was someone that you would just watch and you'd be like, try to emulate, because everything he did was just like, I'm going to prove it by how I play and how I train, where Trevor was going to do that, but he was also going to be the guy who's going to uplift you and bring you apart. And that was never going to be Quinn's personality in the room. So do I think he was a perfect choice? No, but I think he was the best choice that was available at the time.
Well, before we leave this topic, let's just get to the elephant in the room here, because as you mentioned, he did not mention Elias by name when he also talked about JT's success. He talked about how he got there without cheating all the time. Is Elias Pettersson at the root of everything that's gone wrong with the Vancouver Canucks?
No, he's not. He's not at the root of everything that's gone wrong with the Canucks. And obviously he's played a significant role simply because of the talent that he is, the contract that he has, and the production that he's been able to put on the board these last couple of years. That just makes him the eye of the storm. But do I think that he is at the root cause of all that has gone wrong in Vancouver in the last 2 years? No. And we've talked about this before, is that I've mentioned that the fish rots at the head, is that it starts at the very top. It starts at ownership. It trickles down to management. It trickles down to the coaching staff. It trickles down to the players. At the end of the day, the players obviously are the ones that are on the ice and doing the job. And so the buck kind of ends there. And when you're the highest paid player on the team and you're supposed to be the most productive, and instead of being that, you're also, causing issues off ice and distractions in the room, that's going to only shine that spotlight on you further. So he certainly should carry a lot of that burden, but I'm not going to say that he is the root cause of everything that's wrong with the organization.
Let's get to the current edition of the team, who continued to lose. They continued to score some goals, however, as well. And we saw them get continued contribution from the young blueliners. Tom Willander is now at 20 points on the season. William is not too far behind him, and the two, in terms of a Canuck jersey production, and the two of them are in the top 5 for rookie defenseman scoring. Is that a silver lining to the end of this season here for the Canucks?
Absolutely. Too bad they don't have the golden rule set up for draft picks too, hey? Because they're eliminated first, and now they're scoring some goals. Maybe they could win some games and have some fun down in the end of the season. And
they win games at this time of year, Cam. This is their time to shine after a mathematical elimination. They do it every year. They win games in April.
They do, and usually it sewers their draft slot, but not this year. Locked in at 32. So go ahead and win as many games as you want, boys. Go have some fun. Go put some points on the board. Absolutely, I do think that Zibuiam and Tom Willander, those are bright spots that you want to lean into. Liam Ugrin, obviously Marco Rossi. Like, there are some things that fans can still tune in to watch and look for bright moments, because now we're looking at the future, right? Like, obviously it's been the whole season looking towards the future, but now it's you've got your 25% chance at the top. You're not falling below 3rd overall in this class. Focus on the draft class, focus on the young players. Tom, the 20 points is nothing to sneeze at, especially on a team that doesn't score that many goals, right? In the situation that he's been placed in. He's had some minutes against some elite opposition. I had someone actually, perfect timing, feed me some information, some kind of behind the scenes team analytics that showed his expected goals for while playing against elite competition has hovered right around 50, which is pretty darn good. A lot higher than a guy like DPD has been doing. And we saw him, get the healthy scratch there too. So it's promising for Willander. I do think that we need to look at him as like, what's he going to be long-term, because he doesn't have kind of that one elite tool that you would be like, there's top pair potential here. I think he's just going to kind of masquerade as a do everything in your top 4. He can help out offensively. He can help out defensively. He can make a first pass. He can handle it a little bit, but there's nothing really that pops in his game. Yeah. Whereas a guy like Zibuiam has those tools that can really pop.
Does the skating not pop on Willander?
He's just smooth
skating.
skating.
I thought the skating kind of pops. I mean, at least it's aesthetically pleasing at the very least.
It's gorgeous, right? It is absolutely. It's a function and form. Like, it is very, very pretty for sure. I don't think he's an electric mover. I don't think that he uses his feet to create advantages and mismatches enough. Hopefully he grows into that. He's more he's smooth rather than quick or darting or dynamic. Okay. Where Bouillon, I think, has that ability to make guys miss with his shiftiness. But I would absolutely agree that skating is Wielander's best asset.
Marcus Pettersson is showing some signs here, better of late. Is he salvageable, Cam?
Salvageable for the team or salvageable as a trade asset?
Well, salvageable in terms of getting back to being a second paired defenseman, or at least not being part of the problem here in Vancouver.
I think so. He turns 30, this summer or something. He's still 29. I do think so. And, the advanced analytics actually show that his numbers aren't bad this year, both on offensively and defensively. And I think that there's some teams out there that would be interested in taking this player on if he was made available. Not sure you're going to get the exact number that you got back, that you traded away for to in the return. But I think you could move him if you wanted to at the summer at the draft, or you could bring him back next year and hopefully he has a little bit better of a time. And then you look to move him. And if you want him to be a piece of this team long term, then I do think that there's upside there for growth as well, and to return to being a legitimate second pair defenseman who has some veteran leadership and can kind of do things at both ends of the ice. So I do think he's salvageable. I've said it before, though. I think that basically if you're over the age of 23, 24 on this team, that you should be looked at as an absolute trade chip. And they should be looking to move out as many of those as they can. And then if you need to bring in new guys to support your players on the cheap as UFAs, go ahead and do that.
You do need some veterans on the blue line around. As we've seen with all these young blue liners around, it's pretty nice to have old guy, young guy as parents, right? Rather than trust two kids together.
Oh, without question, you want someone who can show them the way for sure. Yes. You don't necessarily have to trade first rounders and pay the guy $5+ million a year to do that, though. No, that's true. So that's where it's like if you want to move off it, like obviously it's been reported well that they have no interest in moving Phil Peronic, so obviously he's going to be there as a piece long term. And then, but do you need two of those guys that are making more than $5 million, or do you move a guy like Marcus Pettersson and then just go sign a veteran for $2 or $3 million who can bring someone along and help out? Maybe they're not going to have the same impact on the ice, but they might have the same or better impact in the room and as a leader or something like that too.
A couple more games for Ty Mueller this season. Is there anything there? I mean, is he a Teddy Bluger? Are they grooming him into a new Teddy Bluger? What do you think?
I think that's absolutely how they hope that it'll go, that they envision him for him. He's on the way to being a real success story, drafted as a 20-year-old in the mid rounds, right? Like those guys, yes, when you draft someone 20, they're a little closer to the finished product. And so you get a better look at what you might be welcoming in, but still it's hard to find those guys. It's hard to find players in the mid rounds anyway. So the fact that he's, Abbotsford's MVP this year, centered their top line for stretches, big faceoff guy, killed penalties, played on their power play, like did all those things, led the team in goals, I believe. So he did a lot of good things on a not great team down in Abbey. And then to come up and get, a cup of coffee here down the break, it's good for him. Do I think he's long-term going to be a full-time NHLer? I think the jury's still out there. I think that there is a chance that could happen for him, and he could become a Teddy Bluger light player down the middle that can be defensively responsible and kill penalties and take faceoffs and do all those things and generate 15, 20 points a season for you. And I think that obviously that would be a huge win if that's how it turned out. But even if he's kind of one of those quad A guys who plays a big role for your minor league team and can come up and fill gaps, I think that's still a win.
We started with one Hughes. I want to get to another here, Cam. You were the guy who mentioned to us some weeks ago, TJ Hughes at Michigan, the rare college free agent that may actually have NHL skill, might be a part of an NHL scoring group. Needless to say, they play this weekend in the Frozen Four. What's the latest? What are you hearing? Because it seems like the Canucks are interested. I imagine others are as well. But what's your sense of where this file's going to go?
Yeah, I'm very interested to see what TJ decides to do here because, like you said, he's going to have loads of options. He's been my pick for the Hobie for a while now. I think he checks all the boxes. He's probably going to end up leading the nation in scoring here, especially if Michigan can take care of business against Denver in their matchup in the semis on Thursday. I think Vancouver's in on it. I think they've been in on it for a while among a couple other Canadian teams, and then among a whole bunch of big name teams as well too in the States. So he has a decision to make. Do you take a team like Vancouver that will be like, hey, we'll sign you and we will get you into games right away and we'll burn that year of ELC, right? We'll use you right now. And so because of his age, it's a 1-year deal, right? 1-year ELC. And then if they burn that, boom, he's automatically an RFA. And now they can pay him a lot more, right? Versus the Caps that are on those entry-level deals. So you can take that route. But that's going to get him a couple of games, maybe. Maybe it's going to get him a couple of NHL games, and now it's the summer. Or he could look at a team, like Dallas, like Colorado, someone like that has, especially a team like Colorado that has few prospects in their system, but they don't have a spot for him right now. So it's like, okay, you go to the American League, and now not only do you get the rest of the season in the American League, but now you get a playoff run there too. You don't burn the deal. Next year, you come in as one of their top prospects and you have a full year before you're an RFA. You have more opportunities. You're in a better organization. You have that whole summer to train after getting 20 extra games of pro experience to get you ready for the next season. But you probably leave a little bit of money on the table because you're waiting an extra year to get that RFA deal. So it's really I'm really curious to see which path he chooses here. But I do think that Vancouver has been hot on him for a while now. And I think that they'll put together a decent package and the best that they can offer. And I'm sure that'll include burning that year and going RFA right away.
And are you of any mind that he could be a top line player, or is this a middle six player?
Yeah, no, not a top line player. No, he's a good player. He's a smart player. He's a crafty player. I think there's a lot of things that in his toolbox that says like, hey, he can play NHL minutes, and maybe he could fill in on a team like Vancouver in the top 6 or top 9. Do I think he's a legitimate top 6 guy here long term? Like again, like it's difficult to do. And he's, he's 25 years old. He's a finished product already. But he is a skilled player too. And he plays well with skilled players, as we've seen that with Michael Hage and all those guys at Michigan. So there's a chance that he could put up some points, but I'm not looking at him to be like a 60-point guy or something like that.
Lastly, Cam, we're doing this every week, but taking a look at a prospect that may fit that second Vancouver first-round pick, the Minnesota Wild Indigenous selection. Last week, we looked at Swedish centerman Alexander Command. This week, who are you looking at?
Why don't we stick around in Sweden? Why don't we hang around in Sweden and go to the blue line this time? Okay, I want to talk about Malte Gustafsson. Now, there's definitely a world where he isn't around when this pick kicks off. That there are some teams, and there are some people in EP here too that are chomping at the bit to say that this is the top Euro defenseman in the class. And remember, we've got an Albert Smits hanging around there too. So 6'4", left-handed defenseman, very young for this class. He's played, over half his season, 2/3 of his season in the SHL this year. Started the year out with a strong Holinka, over a point per game there. So really aggressive rush defender. I think I'll stack his rush defense up against, almost anybody in this class. So he's really advanced at that. He's physical. He's rangy. The skating is at least average, probably call it above average. And he has really high upside. Like the flashes offensively, I think are there. Maybe even higher than a guy like Albert Smits, who kind of has a more physical presence. So I think that there's still warts in his game, or else he would be kind of one of these guys that's right in there with Karlsson and Smits and stuff. His retrieval game is dicey at the SHL level right now. He reminds me of like Simon Edvinsson though. Now playing for Detroit, right? So that big, toolsy, rangy, skates well, can do a lot of good on the defensive side of things, and then can still make a first pass and can still make things happen offensively. So Malte Gustafsson, he's going to be higher on my board. He'll probably be higher on the EP board than this pick will indicate, but I do think that there's a world that he's hanging around kind of in the late teens, early 20s, and I think it'd be a terrific pick for Vancouver.
Yeah, I was impressed by him and William Hankinson, the other big, tall, rangy Swedish left shot defenseman on their World Junior team this year. And the other thing we should point out about Gustafsson, you say one of the younger players in the class, he will not turn 18 until about 2 weeks before the entry draft. So yes, quite late. He played the entirety of this season at 17 years old. Well, we got many more weeks of this, Cam, and certainly counting down less than a month away until the NHL Draft Lottery, buddy. We'll be looking forward to that. Thank you for this. Safe travels to Vegas. We'll catch up next week.
Sounds good, boys. Talk soon.
So, Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center.
You wouldn't think you could reinvent the pizza, but Pizza has done just that. The engineers went into the lab, and they've come out with the Volcano Dipper. It's new at Pizza. You can rip and dip your slice of pizza into a molten volcano-shaped center filled with their famous creamy garlic sauce. No longer are the dips somewhere cast aside, like forgotten children.
Like orphans.
Yeah. No. They're part of the pizza.
In the center.
It's the perfect dip for creamy garlic lovers. Go check it out right now. Only at Pizza Pizza.
I believe they're called chefs, not engineers.
You think a chef could come up with that? It's just easy. You think a chef just puts the dip in the middle?
And was there a reason why we morphed into monster truck voice there? Does
Volcano Dipper.
Grave Digger making an appearance here? No, Jeff Paterson is. He's been digging the Canucks grave all year. How are you?
Paul Bearer. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm all right. There were plenty of pizzas to go around on Saturday in that game against Utah.
And they got burned
sure was.
by the volcano, yes. Hey, at least they're kind of fun. We've been talking about their goal scoring. They've scored a bunch of goals here in the last 5 games. I mean,
Jeff, give me your positives coming out of the weekend. Put a smile on our face with something.
Yeah, the power play is essentially like the smoking volcano right now. It's wild. The power play is running at 40% in the last 10 games, but like everything with the Canucks, if you try to be positive, they've won 2 of those 10 games. Like they've got a power play that's humming at 40% over a 10-game stretch, and they somehow have managed to win just 2 of those games. So it tells you how many they give up. And boy, they gave up a bunch the other night. Saturdays have not been kind to the Canucks. 7 in Calgary, 5 against the Seattle Kraken not that long ago. So even when you do try to be positive, you're kind of brought right back down to earth again with this hockey club because they just can't have nice things.
It is power play driven, but Jake DeBrusk's totals are coming around, Jeff. He's 1 goal away from 20. He's 2 points away from 40. And look, it's important if you're looking to move on from him in the summer.
Well, I come back to Blake's hockey card thing. Like, if he gets to 20, like, let's just say he played out his contract here in Vancouver, and 20 ended up being the low water mark, but he had a bunch of seasons between 25 and 28. You could probably live with that as the one bad season because at least it got to something that started with a 2.
Yeah.
And we have seen him do this so many times, even in his 2 years here. He has scored in 3 straight. He's scored in 4 or 5. He scored in 5 of the last 7 games for the Vancouver Canucks. And so where it looked like he was going to be stuck on 14 or 15 goals, it is remarkable how quickly he can ramp things up, and he's doing it in and around the blue paint, which to me is the great mystery in all of this is why can he do it on the power play? But at 5-on-5, like, can he not go near the front of the net and find loose change somewhere and stuff it home? But it is wild that 16 of his 19 goals have been scored on the power play. So, I think there's a couple of reasons for it. One is that Marco Rossi has been healthy and has now been part of this power play since the Olympic break. And so it's been the same 5 guys on the first unit. I think they're finding some chemistry and some cohesion there. Adam Foote's talked about the fact that Besser and DeBrusk, if you watch sort of the interchange, both of them are taking turns as the net front, but also sliding out to the bumper. I think that's causing some confusion for the defenders. And Filip Hronek seems to be finding these shooting lanes that either are hitting players or being deflected. And, it's working. It's unfortunate that it hasn't been able to work like this all season long to lead to more victories earlier in the year. Yes, they're playing out the string, but other teams are playing for something here. So this isn't other teams, taking pity on the Vancouver Canucks. This is, in theory, other teams gearing up for the playoffs with their best penalty killers. And somehow, some way, this Vancouver Canucks power play right now is getting the job done in a big way.
Yeah, and we asked Corrado about it a few weeks ago, DeBrusk and the power play merchant. And he boiled it down to attainable space. There is space that you get easy for free on the power play, and he takes advantage of it.
Going forward, he might be a guy that you park further down the lineup at even strength and then just bring him on the power play.
Well, they've been doing that too.
Yeah, I think this year is going to be the outlier, whether he's here or somewhere else. He's going to score more than 3 goals at 5-on-5 over the course of a full season. So that part just doesn't make sense. But back to your point, Matt, about, if Jake has a rethink here in the offseason, or if the team decides that, they want to move off of Jake DeBrusk, I think you can put a bow on him and say, who needs a power play specialist and finisher? And I liken it to Anaheim, who had the worst power play in the National Hockey League last year. They recognized that they had to get better. They went out and they got Chris Kreider. Chris Kreider, I think a lot of people kind of had given up, maybe thought his best days of scoring goals were behind him, but he is now part of an Anaheim team that's pushing for a Pacific Division championship and hopes to get on some sort of lengthy playoff run here once the postseason rolls around. So I think you can look back as recently as last summer where a team in the National Hockey League recognized here's a piece that we can make a trade for, bring him in. And I think Jake DeBrusk could be that. Like, just look at the teams that have struggled in the power play this season and see if there isn't a trade partner to be found there.
Absolutely. And I was looking at some rosters pointing forward. There will be a lot of teams that could use a middle six forward. And as we've always talked about, Blake, it's not the worst contract. In fact, it's a contract that may age very, very well as the Cap makes some very big jumps in these upcoming summers.
With this player, guys, you know you're getting a guy as low maintenance as they come, right?
Yeah.
Like this isn't a question of a guy that he's been hard on himself. I think this season has been dismal for everybody, and he's taken a lot of it to heart. Obviously, it was the healthy scratch that night in Seattle right after Christmas, but through it all, he has maintained the things that you love about Jake DeBrusk, that comes to the rink, the smile is there for the most part, will chat your ear off, and I just think he could fit seamlessly into any locker room. So if there are teams out there that, are wondering why has it gone south for him, I think there's lots of reasons. I think you can explain that pretty much across the board with his Vancouver Hockey Club. But if there is an interested party out there, I just think Jake DeBrusk is about as low maintenance and as true a pro as you're going to find that could fit seamlessly. He could strike up a conversation in any or all of the other locker rooms around the National Hockey League.
All right. Brock Besser's a veteran winger, but next year they're going to have a lot of youth on the wings. And I'm not scared of that if I'm the Vancouver Canucks, but they're going to have presumably one of Stenberg or McKenna. We'll cross the bridges when we get to them, but I think it's certainly a distinct possibility that one of those two wingers is here. You got Lekramaki, of course. You've got Ogren still that you want to give that opportunity to. And then you've got Linus Karlsson, who bags a couple of more here. And Jake DeBrusk is lucky that he's on this hot streak, because if not, Linus Karlsson probably would have caught him in points at this point in the proceedings. But as it stands, Linus Karlsson is still 5th in Canucks scoring. If I had told you that on April the 6th, we'd be talking about Linus Karlsson as 5th in Canucks scoring, you would call it a resounding success. Now, there's a bunch of context that needs to be there, but it still is a huge success story. And yeah, he's older, but there's a chance that this guy could be a top 6 winger here.
Just hit 100 games in the NHL on the weekend.
Yeah, I'll take your comparison and I'll raise you one that if at the outset of the season, Blake, I had told you that a couple of Swedish forwards would have 15 goals apiece on the Vancouver Canucks, you would have said, well, Elias Pettersson clearly got injured and his season must have been cut short, and Nils Höglander bounced back and he had 15 goals, and this is a good news story. Alas, it is not a good news story. It is for Linus Karlsson, don't get me wrong here, but we know the struggles the other guys have had. But yes, Linus Karlsson is tied with Elias Pettersson, EP40, Petey, that guy. They both have 15 goals on the season, and so you're left shaking your head at that part. But for Karlsson, it is just a guy that, has put in the years. He's been a scorer wherever he's gone, right? Like he had the 20-some goals in his year in the Swedish Hockey League, and I think that turned some heads. I thought, hey, he's done this as a pro. Now let's see him do it in North America. 3 seasons for the most part in Abbotsford, and scored, I think, 23 and 24. Like there was a consistency to his goal output in the American Hockey League. Obviously, last year in the playoffs was so good and so consistent. 14 goals for Abby on its run to the Calder Cup. And then the progression was, can he do it in the National Hockey League? And the answer is, yeah. I mean, there is absolutely utility in guys that can score you 15 goals at this level, win their board battles. Adam Foote talked about it post-game the other night, of predictability in the way that he plays. He's not flashy, but you put the puck on his stick in the right spots. Like his first goal, to take that puck off the boards, cut to the middle of the ice, backhand. Like there was a lot to like just in that sequence. And then the other goal, nifty deflection after the Canucks had a good shift down low to work the puck to the point, and the Mancini shot, and then Karlsson getting to the front of the net there and getting his stick on it to tip that one home. So, yeah, there may be a goal or two left in him with 6. I don't think he can get to 20, but even if he falls short of 20, still 15 goals for his first full season, earned his contract. And yeah, he will be in their plans moving forward here. And it's just a question of where ultimately is he best slotted in a National Hockey League lineup. But in a season that's had so few good news stories for the Vancouver Canucks, Linus Karlsson absolutely on that list.
All right, talk to me about Evander Kane and celebrating 1,000 goals on Saturday.
Yeah, I thought it was short. It was very sweet. Overload of cuteness with the 4 kids out on the ice all getting their mini sticks. He had mom and dad. I think he had his grandma on the ice as well. So some nice representation for the Kane family. I wasn't sure if he was going to play because he played the 1,000th game and then he sat the next 2. And we were told that he has been battling through a nagging injury for a while. And the fact that they came off the road, they didn't skate on Friday. And with the early start, there was no morning skate. So we didn't know the lineup until essentially warm up. But Evander was there in uniform and got the silver stick, got some sort of plaque from the organization. Looked like he got a Rolex from his teammates as well. And on they went and played the game, not nearly as prominent as he was in Vegas when he opened the scoring in his 1,000th game. But I'm a sucker for pomp and circumstance, even at the end of a lost season like this one. It was relatively subdued, but still, I thought
it was appropriate, Jeff.
It was a fitting.
Yeah, I mean, we all talked about how they would handle this because, he's hardly a career Canuck just this one year. Yep. It hasn't gone well. But he is a Vancouver guy, and I thought it hit most of, if not all of, the right notes. So well done.
And then he hit the crossbar. He almost scored in his celebratory game, but alas, it wasn't to be. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, in, out, and get on with the games. And I think that's sort of the mindset of everybody around this team right now is just get through these games now, 6 of them remaining.
Yeah, and you're right. The children were adorable. The little baby looking up at the scoreboard, like seeing herself, was just too much. EPD scratch. What's going on there?
Yeah, my read on this one is he's had his struggles, and he coughed up that puck in Minnesota that led to one of the goals. But, man, there were a lot of – we haven't done a show since then. There were miscues all over the ice against the Minnesota Wild. My read on the situation is that it hasn't worked with DPD and Victor Mancini together. This is the NHL, and you're throwing them off the deep end, and people will say play the kids, but – I'm not sure that you're developing if they're just getting absolutely buried and caved on every shift. And so Victor Mancini's best game maybe of the season was last Saturday. And I know this will sound funny because they gave up 7 in Calgary, but he actually, I thought, looked as poised and confident. And remember, he set up Nils Höglander, so he got an assist that night as well. That came with P.O. Joseph as his defense partner. Now, P.O. Joseph isn't the most veteran player in the National Hockey League, but he's been around the block more than either DPD or Victor Mancini. And I just think that it comes down to, if you're trying to develop these guys, that a little bit of stability, a little bit of support. Now, I say that, and that first Utah goal the other night, P.O. Joseph goes for a big old skate after he leaves the puck behind the net. Mancini with the weak tried to rim it around the boards, and then nobody takes Kyler Yamamoto in front of the net. So it's not perfect. It's not a perfect pairing when they've got Mancini with P.O. Joseph, and the proof was in the pudding the other night. But that's my read, is that it just hasn't worked with the 2 young guys together. And so if they want to insulate one, it means that one of the other ones is going to have to come out. And I think maybe it's as simple as that.
Okay, let's get on to Quinn Hughes because he had a whole lot to say in Minnesota last week. Jeff, what struck you most?
That he didn't know his teammates, which was a really curious comment. Like, all these days later, and I still am sort of wrapped up in this notion that he would say that for public consumption. He may not be best friends with these guys, but he has played with almost all of them, aside from the guys that were traded for him straight up from Minnesota. So I'm not sure where he was getting at there. He seemed to protest an awful lot that he was playing hard right to the end, because we all remember those clips, and that's all they were. They were clips, but there was the game in San Jose where it first came up, what's going on with Quinn Hughes? Like, we haven't seen shifts like that where just totally lackadaisical. And then there was the one in Denver where he was just wandering all over the ice as plays going on around him. So there were some things. And then we know how he handled himself. And it felt like he wasn't trying too hard when microphones and cameras were in his face at the bitter end. But, through all of that, I'm still a firm believer that the team failed him more than he failed the hockey club. I found it a little amusing that he said he was so laser focused on game in, game out that he really hadn't given the matchup against the Canucks a whole lot of thought. Now, there are a lot of people in hockey that aren't giving the Canucks a lot of thought these days, but this isn't just any other game. And I also thought it was interesting, too, when he said, it's kind of like playing my brothers. And so I suppose on that level, he has had games where, you've got ties and connections to the guys on the other side, but you're paid by your team to go out there and play. And he did. He played a lot, was fairly prominent, had a couple of scoring chances. And so it was sort of what we've come to know and expect from Quinn Hughes all along the way. But yeah, I mean, there were a few baffling and Quinn Hughes' brilliance is on the ice. He was never one that was a quote machine, but even in some of the things that he did or didn't say the other day, still kind of left you shaking your head just a little bit.
Well, also, I thought him a better EQ guy than what I read this week. I thought he had a better way with people than what I've come to learn after what he had to say this past week. Now, look, there's part of me that thinks, and I think this is what is rubbing Canucks fans the wrong way, it almost seems like Quinn wants total erasure of his Vancouver Canucks career. Like it didn't even happen, right? Like he was so quick to move on. So I think that has got him in trouble as well. Also, like you were the captain, you had some agency, and he may just not have been equipped, Jeff, and he may have just been totally a wrong choice from Canucks Sports and Entertainment and senior management. I mean, we're asking on our poll question today, after hearing what he had to say, was he a regrettable choice as captain of the Canucks?
He was given the captaincy at a relatively young stage of his career. Was he fully ready for it? In hindsight, maybe not. But he was the best player on the team. There were guys that had higher point totals in some of the seasons, but without a doubt, he was the heartbeat of that hockey club. And again, almost every night out, those clips aside, he dazzled us, he wowed us with his brilliance on the ice. And I think you want one of your best players to be the captain. And so, I remember we had those discussions about should it be 40, should it be 43? They elected to go with Quinn Hughes. Did he absolutely want to be the captain at that stage? Who knows? But I agree with you to a degree. It does feel like, boy, he's turned the page. I don't know about complete erasure of his time. I mean, the Canucks drafted him. He's going to be in their history books for all time. But this much is clear that while he didn't want to talk about it in the first head-to-head meeting, he certainly will circle whenever the day comes that he has to return here at some point next season. And we're going to have to go through it all again. And he better be prepared for, even though scrums have diminished over the years here in Vancouver, there are still certain times when I'm reminded that this is a big-time hockey market. And that'll be one of them, whenever that day is that the Minnesota Wild make their first visit to Vancouver. Of course, that's supposing that he's still with the Minnesota Wild.
Well, there's that as well, right? Like
I would think they want one more year of him for sure.
When you see him lionizing JT Miller like he did in this piece, Jeff, do you get the sense that is as much an anti-Elias sentiment as it was a pro-JT sentiment? Like, do you think Quinn was team JT and that Elias was part and parcel of his departure here or desire to move on?
I mean, Quinn himself got caught in the middle of it, without a doubt. Whatever side he was on, he was the captain, and he did have to try to play it down the middle, at least for public consumption. Did he share more of a bond with JT Miller? I can't speak to that, but obviously teammates on Team USA, gold medal winners, they eliminated Elias Pettersson, so maybe there was some double joy in all of that at the Olympics. Whatever the case, the fact that, like, I look at that question and I think, well, but wait a sec. Like, when he said, I don't know many guys on the other side, like, he had an opportunity to sing the praises of Brock Besser and Philip Hronik and Kevin Lankinen and other guys that he certainly spent some time with. And if he had eliminated or avoided mentioning EP40 by name, I think that would have raised some eyebrows there. But instead, he chose to say what he said. So he's a tough guy to get a read on. I always found that even in his time here. So, I think maybe we're trying to parse his words a little too much on some of these topics, but at the end of the day, one of the things that stuck out at me was the name checks of Nikita Zadorov and Elias Lindholm. Like, forget about the teammates that survived and moved forward. I think that was a nod to, you had these pieces in place. You had to find a way. And we all know what Zadorov meant in his limited time here, the swagger that he brought to the team, the physicality, a way that he stuck up for teammates. And Lindholm obviously gave them depth down the middle. And we look at this hockey club now and you think, my goodness, from then to now, only 2 years, but they're just so thin at center ice. So, yeah, I mean, there were lots of things in the article that jumped out at me, but I thought that was interesting that, he seemed to be pining for, I can't say the glory days, but certainly the best hockey that we've seen from the Vancouver Canucks in the last decade or so.
And to me, it felt like he was washing his hands of the whole situation and saying, there was nothing I could do about it, and that's where I think a lot of people.
And that may be true.
Yeah, and maybe
he's
only they know.
I mean, if he's not a natural born leader, and they slap the C on him, and he's just not ready for it from a age or maturity or just personality point of view, then that is absolutely.
And
fair.
I thought pretty telling too that one quote about all we did was win, in January of 2024. But even then, the cracks were starting to emerge even through the victories. And so often we think that winning, can cover a lot of things. So I thought there was a little bit of peeling back some of the layers there that if we wondered, like, where did the fractions start? I mean, you can track it back to a month when they mowed through all those New York area teams, went to Pittsburgh. Paterson had 4 points, including the overtime winner in a 4-3 win against the Penguins. Like, they were motoring that month, but it was interesting to hear Quinn say that beneath the surface, things were starting to bubble.
Lastly, Jeff, he's not a big birthday or celebrations guy. You are. Happy anniversary, Jeff. 5 years ago, we started this project, the three of us in the digital space. So good to be here with you.
Congrats
all these years
on
later.
that, and thank you for your service.
Yeah, and right back at you. And that's pretty cool. Like 5 full years now of doing this. And when I think that we started in the blanket fort, we had some fun with it, and there were challenges, obviously, as there are with any startup. But Matt, you had a little health scare that looked like maybe it was gonna, I don't want to say derail us entirely, but we had to scramble a little bit then. But you're back and stronger than ever. But yeah, I just it shows the support that we had on the radio side, and we've certainly spoken about that pretty much every anniversary along the way, but so many people that were with us then are with us now, and that means the world. We wouldn't be able to do it if we didn't have the support of the listeners and the sponsors and everybody else. But it does show what is possible, when you're punted out into the street unceremoniously, as we all were. And it's not just us. I mean, it's been great to see so many of our colleagues that have been able to, find their foothold in the market and continue to do what we all do, which ultimately is talking about sports, mostly hockey, but, cover local. And I think that maybe more than anything was the lesson to be learned here, that the guys back east, they didn't see any need for us, but we knew that there was need here in the market. And so, that's a milestone, 5, and I look forward to the next 5 as well.
It's also proof that rebuilds work.
Yes.
For those, because we gain audience each and every year or each and every month or week, Blanket Fort was the nickname we gave to our makeshift studio, which was a conference room here at the Wall Center before we built this puppy.
Yeah.
So thank you, Rob Preston, Arbor Lee, who built this puppy, and everybody else who got us up and going. You're right. The support of the audience and the support of all those sponsors that we had at the ground floor who really allowed us to get going. And that's why we always say, hey, support the local folks who support us. And Jeff, thank you for this. Thank you for 5 years. 6 more RinkWide Vancouver's post-game editions.
Not that he's counting.
Before the season is over, and we'll talk to you later this week, my man.
All right, guys. Thanks.
Secure some price from the historic Wall Center in the Nation Network studio built by Arbor Lee. The real win happens after the final buzzer. Stay downtown, stay comfortable, stay close to everything here at Sheraton Vancouver Wall Center, your game day home base starts at wallcenter.com.
It does indeed.
Thought you wanted in there for a second.
No.
Whitecaps come back from 2-1 late, win 3-2 versus Portland before a season-best crowd of 25,465 at an open roof BC place. Another sign of spring, right?
And ballsy. Like I can't remember the last time they opened it this early. Like that's great.
Thomas Mueller from the spot, Sebastian Berhalter from open play with the winner shortly after making a game-saving tackle in the 95th minute. And ironically, Mueller and Seb were not at their best in this match, nor were the
great.
Caps.
No, they still dominated statistically the match, but they could have been so much better. There were so many half chances, particularly in the first half. They should have been up 3-0 before the equalizer, never mind the go-ahead goal. Both those goals come late for San Jose in the first half. It should have been 3-0 Whitecaps, but they just didn't capitalize.
That didn't stop the party on the concourse there at BC Place. Let's take a listen, Mike.
So the question for the Whitecaps, and it's great that they can win these sort of matches when they're not at their best. But let's hope that that's all that was, because otherwise, if they end up dropping that's 3 losses in a row across all competitions for the Whitecaps, and they've had some very disappointing results so far this season outside of league play, and the one loss that they suffer in league play is a game they shouldn't lose either. The next one's going to be interesting to watch. This is a decent team for New York City that comes in, 3 wins, 1 loss, 2 draws. The Whitecaps need to show that they can find themselves again. It's been a while.
You remind me of 2011 Blake Price picking nets on that Canucks team.
It seems funny to say at 5-1, but there's a world not too far from this one where they are a 3-3 team.
5-1 is tied for second place in MLS West with San Jose. They're just the 1 point back of LAFC. Newcomer Bruno Caicedo made his Whitecaps debut and showed electric speed down the flank. Now, we've seen some burners here in our day. Alphonso Davies, of course, stands out, but old Whitecaps heads will remember Kakuta Mane, Eric Hurtado, Darren Mannix. Remember all 3 of them at one point? Not great with the ball at their feet, but holy cow, could they run. Jaden Nelson last year, he had some giddy up.
This is, to me, has the potential. Again, it was a 20-minute look here. But I think he has the potential to be a notch higher than Jaden. I'm a big Jaden Nelson fan because of what you just said, that it's one thing to be fast, but you need to keep the ball on your feet. And Jaden did a very good job, I thought, of doing that and actually giving the Whitecaps options once he arrived into the box. Bruno Caicedo just torched the defenders every single time down the park. I think it's going to be very interesting. The Whitecaps have liked him for a couple of years now. They finally land him. I think it's going to be very intriguing. AZ's been good, but AZ does not have the speed that even Nelson had. He's not slow, but he's not quite like this. He's not otherworldly fast. I think there's a chance Caicedo might be the fastest Whitecap of all time.
Yeah.
Which says a lot. They've had some burners, including Davies.
Yep. I mean, I think they're all sub 11-second 100-meter guys. They just, to the eye, there's a demonstrable difference when they are running at full flight versus others. 4:30 Saturday, BC Place. They host NYC FC. Bad news for Ralph Priso. Sarita Patel reporting the Canadian men's national team player and, of course, Whitecap center back will be out indefinitely after an MRI revealed a left hamstring strain for Ralph. Talk to me about their situation without the guy who has been the big patch in the dam at center back going back to late last season.
Well, I think because they're not in CONCACAF and you don't have to worry about Canadian champs until deeper into May. They're not in a critical situation. No midweek games just yet. I think you can surf on Laborda and Blackman for now. We haven't seen Schoenlau, but I think he'd be.
Forgot he was even there.
I think he'd be in if he was training well enough to Jesper Sorensen's level. So I think you're okay, and I think we're 2 weeks away from Veselinovic being on the bench. So we are close. Like I don't know if Veselinovic starts in the month of April, but I think he's on the pitch in the month of April. So if they can just grind out a couple of more games and stay healthy, and Laporta and Blackman can stay healthy, I think they're going to be okay.
Ex-Whitecaps coach Vanni Sartini returns to Vancouver and gets a win with his new club, the CPL's Halifax Wanderers. 1-0, they defeat Vancouver FC before 3,500 at Willoughby Community Park. Scored on a lovely free kick. Got a chance to catch up with Vanni for a few minutes on Friday afternoon at their training session, and he was overjoyed to be back home is Vancouver, right?
Yeah, his Canadian home. But he's enjoying life, and he's taking on a lot of Canadian Italians. A lot of guys with vowels ending their names in Halifax, so he's surrounding
some
himself.
ex-Caps connections on that team as well.
Yeah, and they get the clean sheet, so he'll like that.
Goldeneyes score goals, but can't turn them into a win. We have been waiting for this team to break out with an offensive game. They score 5 times against Minnesota. Alas, they give up 6. At least it was a high-scoring game. We've talked about these PWHL games have been a little low-scoring for the hockey fans.
Well, it's tough that they had a late lead, too. They were leading 4-3 here and couldn't seal the deal.
Remain in 7th place. They're 7 points out of a playoff spot with 3 teams to jump. 3-point night for Sophie Jacks and Claire Thompson. 2-point night for Hannah Miller. They they surrender 35 shots.
A lot of offense.
Which is a big total. They face Boston tomorrow in a takeover game in Edmonton. Brutal weekend for the Blue Jays. They get swept by the Shy Sox. They lose at least an Alejandro Kirk, if not Addison Barger as well, to injury. Kirk breaks his thumb late in Friday's game. Heineman Tyler comes in and immediately makes a game-costing error. Heineman makes 2 errors on Saturday, another throwing miscue and a base-running blunder. Guy was in tears at his locker. This is the 8th game of the season, and he's in tears at his locker.
And there's no crying in baseball. We've known this for years.
Quote, the last 2 games, those losses, they're on me. Sugar-coated any way you want. Yeah, there's other things going on, but they're on me. Blue Jays 4-5. It was a very weak schedule to start the season with the Athletics and Colorado Rockies on the first homestand, then to Chicago. Barger stretches out on a close play at first yesterday, running the baseline, an ankle ailment. He's later removed from the game. Brendan Little can't get anybody out. He's demoted, might be the last we see of the lefty reliever. They're forced to sign ex-Diamondback Patrick Corbin. Brandon Valenzuela is called up to catch, and they might actually need him to masquerade as a starter, given Heineman's struggles. And they start a World Series rematch series against the Dodgers tonight in Toronto. You can look at the pitching matchups here. Those of you on visual platforms, it's Justin Robleski for the Dodgers versus Scherzer tonight. He pitched last year for them, but in relief. Yamamoto, Godzilla, as we began calling him last October, versus Gosman.
That's a hell of a
That's a repeat tomorrow of the Game 6 starting matchup.
And so is Tuesday, Wednesday.
And Ohtani versus Dylan Cease on Wednesday. So, yes, the 2 big Japanese aces of the Dodgers will be in play. And, Toronto's Japanese population is going to turn out for that, right?
They were 4-0 to start, right? The Jays?
3-0.
3-0?
They swept the Athletics. They lost the opening game with Colorado. They won the next one. They were 4-1. They've lost 4 straight.
It was 4-1, and they all 4 wins, rather comfortable, dominating-looking wins, if not on the scoreboard, just in overall play.
Hoffman blew a save they needed to come back from, but okay.
And then, boom.
Vancouver Canadians, monkey see, monkey do with the parent club. They got swept by Tri-City to begin the Northwest League season. Shortstop Arjun Namala had a good weekend at the plate. But the big news, of course, is tomorrow's home opener, 7 p.m. at the Nat, celebrating 75 years of Nat Bailey Stadium all season long. Nice touch by the Jays here. The home schedule begins with the top-rated pitching prospect the Jays have. Number 4 overall on their list, lefty Johnny King will make his C's debut against the Eugene Emeralds. It's Magnet schedule giveaway night, a chance to see some of the improvements to Nat Bailey over the winter, and there were many of those. And, of course, the new White Spot concession on the concourse. Check that out. The homestand lasts through Sunday, games every day. Friday nooner, weekend, 1 p.m. first pitch. We'll talk to you more about the promotions they got going on this week as it goes along. Get your tickets, 604-872-5232 or CanadiansBaseball.com. And it looks like they have some beautiful weather for this opening homestand.
This week looks spectacular.
This was always the worry if they went to full season ball. What does April look like? Oh, my goodness. This week is absolutely divine.
I'm almost of the mind of, guys, make a couple of double headers. let's play these games.
Play 2.
Yeah, let's play
3. They'll play 6 just on consecutive days.
Mm-hmm.
Vancouver Warriors get demolished 15-5 in Buffalo. I watched some of this. They held the early lead. Things were looking good. And then they just got stomped. Loss means they now have company atop the NLL standings with Saskatchewan and Colorado. All 3 clubs are tied at 11-5. And the Rush and the Mammoth play each other this weekend. So one of them will improve to 12-5. And that means the Warriors must beat Halifax Friday at Rogers Arena, 6 p.m. to stay in first place. 2 games left in the regular season. Vancouver knows it's hosting a playoff game, but date, time, opponent, all to be determined. Golf, it's Masters Week, and for the first time in 32 years, no Tiger, no Phil. Mickelson announcing late last week on his social channels that a personal health matter, his family continues to navigate a personal health matter. His wife, Amy, is a cancer survivor. I sure hope everything's okay there with Amy. So no Mickelson and his 3 green jackets. No Tiger Woods, of course. We know that story from last week. J.J. Spawn, the reigning U.S. Open champion, he wins in San Antonio on tour. This Canadian rookie, Sudarshan Yellamraju, another strong weekend. He finishes tied for 14th. Abbotsford's Nick Taylor is the top British Columbian, tied at 28th. Coquitlam's A.J. Ewart 1 stroke behind. He gets a T30. But Ewart and Yellamraju, there's 22 rookies on the PGA Tour this year. These guys have shown punched way above the rookie class.
Yellamraju is like doing the pro thing in terms of he's not really challenged to win yet. But he's just sticking around getting paid. Like he's just getting paychecks. And that's half the battle, especially in the early going in your career.
And what I love about him is you can tell he's a rookie because he kind of looks like an unmade bed out there. Well, like everybody else has their fit, right? There's a PGA Tour fit.
His clothes are like one size too big.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, he's just out there for the golf. That's what it looks like.
Right. I'm just a player. I'm not here for the fashion.
And he is the complete opposite of what we've been talking about with Canadian golfers, and they're fading on the weekend. This kid brings his best on the weekend.
That's right. He's a lefty, too. I love that.
Yeah.
Vancouver's Anna Wang, 17 years old. She was one of 6 players at even par or better heading into the final round of the Aramco Championship on the LPGA Tour in Vegas. And she shot 4 over yesterday, winds up tying for 13th. But at 17 years old, she was in this thing. We've talked about her in the past. She qualified for last year's U.S. Open. She made what is a pretty unusual decision for a North American player. She turned pro at 16, Blake, to join the European Tour. She's won a couple of times over there. We've talked about there is a real good class of up-and-coming young Canadian players, the Brooke Henderson generation, if you will. And Anna is one of those, so good on her for a good finish this week in a very tough field on the LPGA side of things, and we hope to see her playing more here in North America as the tournaments go along. Okay, results of the poll question. Oh, how about this? you're going to do results to the poll question and your browser crashes right as you're about to hear the.
Oh, Matt.
Just about to report.
Do you want me to get
result.
it for you?
Yeah, please. If you don't mind, Blake, I'm going to take a minute here.
All right. Is Quinn Hughes public enemy number one for Canucks fans? Yes or no? I'm going to do it for you now.
Okay. I will say no. No on the poll.
No on the poll.
I will say 56% no.
Rounding up to 59%. So not bad.
58 was my next
Although I'm
guess.
guessing he saw this earlier today when he was compiling.
I did not see it earlier today.
I would have thought it was
I did not.
number.
It was not compiled. I was going to it. We're going to do it live. Errors and omissions from yesterday's program and beyond. Calling and planning. Thank you. I said Michigan, Arizona tomorrow. Meant Saturday in the Final Four semifinal game. We, of course, had Friday off, so I was getting ahead of myself. Thank you for catching that, Colin. Appreciate you tuning in and connecting with the program, and appreciate that over the last 5 years. Blake and I can't thank you enough for your support. It's been a half decade now. I can't believe it. Time has absolutely flown by.
Yeah.
So thank you for connecting with the program. Please do subscribe to our assorted channels, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Follow on social, X, Insta, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky Live on many of those platforms, noon Pacific time weekdays. And, of course, please do support the community sponsors who allow us to do this and do it each and every day for free. Please support those community sponsors and keep it local.